Education 1030 students. I hope that you had a great spring break. This morning I want to talk to you about Chapter 6. So this week we're going to be learning about how do we actually read and understand our college textbooks. So when we're reading textbooks in college, it's a little bit different than when you were reading textbooks in high school. So this whole week is really going to give you tips and tools and strategies that's going to help increase your comprehension so you can understand the different types of reading subjects such as math, science, social sciences, those different types of textbooks. We're also going to be looking at how can you improve your vocabulary development within textbooks at a college level. We're also going to be looking at how we can do an actual outline. So we've been doing outlines, which we call reading organizers, this entire time in class, but this is going to be the week that you're actually going to be submitting an outline for me, an organizer. So as part of your learning resources, you're going to have the PowerPoint slides, you're going to prepare a reading organizer like you always do, and your assignment is going to be for you to complete the outline and organizer document. So you're going to turn in your outline organizer to me for a grade this time. So I wanted to go ahead and get started as far as what our goals are this week. So our goals of what I want you to be able to do is I want you to be able to use those lecture note strategies, use your organizing strategies as far as outlining the most important information. We're also going to be looking at how do we actually read textbooks so we can understand to be able to not only gain knowledge for just a short time, but we want to store that in your long-term memory bank. And that's going to help you prepare for tests and other evaluations. So I want to go ahead and start out looking at your resources here. So I have a PowerPoint here for you, and we're going to go through it a little bit. But before we do that, I wanted to show you, you actually have two videos that I think would help you. So I have two links here underneath the PowerPoint slides. They're pretty short. It's going to go over, the first one is going over how can you actually remember more of what you read. So this is important because we talked just a second ago, I said that was our goal. We want to be able to store this information in the long-term memory bank. In order to do that, you actually have to have a connection with the content, right? You have to relate it to something. So this is going to be a video about how you can remember more of what you read. The next video is also helpful because it talks about how can you read textbooks more efficiently. So if we go back to Chapter 3, we talked about time management strategies and using your time effectively because you don't have a lot. And we talked about how it's important for you to prioritize what you need to do. So this video I feel like is very helpful in that sense as far as using your time wisely. For your assignments, and we'll dig into it a little bit further here in a few moments, is we have your reading organizer, which we always have for you. Okay, so here it is. This is just a reading organizer that you're going to do to help you study for the test. You will be using this to study. You will be turning in an actual outline. And we'll get into it a little bit further, but I kind of wanted to show you what I was talking about. So we said from the very beginning, reading organizers are basically an outline. An outline is supposed to help you as a study tool. So what it does is you're able to put the most important or the main ideas down and then the supporting details with it. So for your homework assignment, you will do your reading organizer activity as always, but we have something added here called the outline. Okay, so your outline and reading organizer activity is actually going to be what you're going to be submitting to Dropbox. So I'm going to show you the outline. So this is an example of a formal outline. And a formal outline has subheadings and chapter headings and subheadings. So the difference between your reading organizer and this formal outline is essentially it does the same thing, putting the most important information on there, but you'll look, it's a little different because you use Roman numerals, capital letters, and then numbers, which we will get in just a few moments. So this is what you're going to be turning into me this week. So what you'll be doing is you're going to be using this to fill in the most important ideas from chapter 6. So yes, you will read chapter 6, and when you get done, you're going to prepare the formal outline, pulling out the headings and subheadings of chapter 6. So I have an example here of a student that completed one, just so you can get an idea of what it looks like. Okay, so you'll see the student here was able to put in the Roman numerals, which would be your main idea, your main heading. Then you have your supporting details and then the subtopics that go underneath the details there as well. Okay, so that is what you will be submitting to me this week for an assignment. You will also have your chapter 6 quiz as well. This is also a good time for me to remind you that if you did not complete the midterm check-in, that was actually due this past Sunday, so you should have turned that in. If not, you can submit it in the late drop box. So just remember, there is a late drop box for assignments. You still have to contact me to let me know that you are submitting the assignment late. You get to it just like you do if you were to submit any assignment. You go to assessments and then you click on Dropbox. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you're going to see a late assignment Dropbox. So you have one for chapter assignments, you have one for your discussion posts, and then you have one for the late capstone. Now please bear in mind, I do accept 2 late assignments that you've not turned in or tried to turn in or submit at all. You turn them in, you will receive up to half the grade of points for submitting it, and the same goes for quizzes as well that's not been attempted. So if this is assignment, you missed the midterm check-in, that might be a good time for you to go ahead. If you've not done any more late assignments, you can turn that in. But please keep in mind that you can only earn up to half your credit, but that is better than earning a 0. So let me go ahead and get into chapter 6 PowerPoint because I wanted to go over a few things before we talk about the outline a little bit more in depth. So if you look here, really when you are trying to read through comprehension, it's good to have a plan, right? So when you're in college, we want you to participate in active reading. So this just means that you're going to use strategies that's really going to help you with your note-taking, help you stay focused on what you're trying to get out of the actual chapter. So there's 4 steps in active reading. They're right here: previewing, marking what you read or what you read, staying focused, and reviewing. So each PowerPoint slide will talk a little bit further about what each of the strategies or steps in active reading looks like. So when you're previewing, really you need to develop a purpose. So that means that you need to get to know your textbook, right? So you're going to take a quick chapter tour of chapter 6. You're going to look through it, see if there's you're going to really be looking at the main headings, right? So when you're in your textbook chapters, if you'll look as you're going through and reading your chapters, there is bold green print, and that bold print is going to be what we call headings, and that just means that's going to let you know the topics that we'll be talking about within the chapter. So a plan for active reading is one of them. It gives you sample outlines. Pay attention to any strategies that pop out when you're doing chapter tours. You're going to be looking at mapping. Right, so mapping is basically how you show relationships between main ideas and the supporting or secondary ideas. Okay, so another thing it talks about when you're previewing is to look for any kind of outlines or lists, right? and then it talks about flashcards. So all of these really going to help you develop a plan, right? A purpose for reading that chapter. The second step in making your plan for reading is going to really be to mark what you read. Okay, so obviously when we think about marking, highlighting is the first thing that comes to our mind. So in your textbook on page 135, it gives you examples of how do you highlight. One thing to be mindful of is students don't have a purpose when they're highlighting. They think that, oh, that looks like something I should highlight, without developing a purpose. Or students make the mistake of highlighting too much. So you only need to think about what the most important information is, and you highlight it, not everything. Also, whenever you highlight, just remember that you may not get to come back to that section and look over it until you're ready to study or before class. So this could be a day up to 3 days. So with that in mind, you may forget why you highlighted that. So it's really important for students to take notes next to where they highlighted. And this just helps you be able to make relationships and to come back and easily identify why you were to highlight that in the first place. The third step really is to stay focused. So we got to think about strategies. And we talked a lot about these strategies in chapter 3. So some of them are going to really look familiar to you, such as finding quiet places to study, staying focused by turning off your devices, read in blocks of time so you don't get a little bit worn out from reading, setting goals, taking breaks, focus on what's important. So all these are really great strategies that are going to help you stay focused. And then the last step when you're trying to develop a plan for active reading is going back and reviewing. Students also seem to struggle with this. So you did good, you read the chapter, you make notes like your outline, and you highlighted, but you didn't take time to go back and review your assigned material. This is something that you should get in the habit of doing, because this is actually part of the studying process. So one of the ways that you can review is, of course, to go back and read it you can read it out loud. Make sure that you take items off of a list that you're trying to study. You can use post-it notes, or if you're a visual person, post visuals around you to help you. And then also talk to other students or form a study group, because this is going to really help you review the material, not only your lecture notes from class, but also your chapters that you're reading. Okay, so there's different strategies that you're going to use when you're looking at different kinds of textbooks. So not all textbooks are going to read the same way as far as the content. So you're going to have to develop different strategies for those different subject areas. For instance, when you're looking at math, you're really going to be looking at the formulas and symbols and how you compute the problems. And you're really going to have to make sure that you are doing the problems or assigned problems or exercises in the book, right? And write down the step-by-step process of completing that problem. In science, it's a little different, because a lot of times science comes with a lot of terminology. So it's important for you to understand all those concepts and terms. So it'd be a good idea for you to do outlines and then underline and highlight. Social science and humanities texts would be classes such as, say, that you have a psychology class or sociology, or a history course or something of that sense would be considered social science. Now, humanities would be, let's say you're taking a Spanish class, or say you're taking an English composition class. So that would be an example of humanities, or saying you're taking European Lit. So that would be humanities. So with these types of text, it's important for you to look at not only the terms, but a lot of times you're going to be looking at different viewpoints. You're going to maybe, if you're taking speech, you may be doing debates and controversies, right? So you're going to look at a lot of different opinions and issues within the content. So your idea would really to be able to seek out those different opinions, look at the debates, compare things, look at the author's perspective. So you're going to be looking at that when you're reading and studying. Also, something to note too is to always use any kind of supplemental material. So a lot of times this may be, say you're taking a science class and they gave you lab, right? Like a lab disc or a lab simulation, or say you're taking math and they give you supplemental materials to help you study with the problems. So these are things you should take advantage of when you're studying. Now the next important heading is really going to be talking about how do you improve your reading. Well, it's important for you to make sure that you are always monitoring your comprehension. So you're going to do understanding checks. So how you're going to do that is you can have study group. You can make sure that if you're an oral reader, you're always reading the material out loud to yourself. You're going to ask yourself questions such as, do I understand this? What are the key points or key ideas? What am I think I'm going to see on the test? The second strategy on helping you improve your reading is really going to be developing that vocabulary. So it's important for you to understand those challenging words or those terms or concepts. So you could use the glossary or dictionary within the text. You can write new words and use them in sentences. Try to make sure you are familiar with any of the contents or challenging words within the book. Another way to improve your reading is really going to be to join a study group, like I said, or if you like to work alone, you may need to talk to your instructor. Say, I'm having a little bit of trouble with this section. Can you help me? Or, I've got a big gap in my notes. So don't feel ashamed or afraid to ask for help. If you need a tutor, get help. Make sure that you're keeping up with your reading. You're reading the assigned material before class. Make sure that you're studying. So if you have assigned problems or assigned reading, you need to be doing that. If you have assigned discussion boards, do that. So just make sure that you are doing what you can to make sure that you understand what you're reading and you understand the content. The last strategy is really going to be, let's say that English is not your first language. It's important for you to read slowly and more than one time. Make sure you look up words you don't know, practicing English. Take advantage of any of the college services that's going to help you so that way you can understand the content. So that is our PowerPoint. I know I went through it pretty fast for the sake of time, but I wanted to kind of give you the information that you needed. So what I want to do is really go back to our homework assignment to show you kind of what you're going to be doing. So as I said, you're going to do your reading organizer, as you always will. But you'll see here you have two. You have a reading organizer, which is what I showed you, but you also have an outline. So this is the reading organizer. I do want you to complete this. There's 5 sections here. You're going to answer the following questions after you read chapter 6. So you're going to tell me the course, which is Education 1030. You're going to put the date, the name of our textbook. You're going to put the chapter number, which is 6, and the title of chapter 6, which is going to be found on page 127. Then you're going to tell me what the overall idea of chapter 6 is. Then you're going to put any main ideas and supporting details down that you found. So these are the main topics or the main heading. Now, just a tip, remember, the main headings or main ideas are usually that bold base type, which is green in our textbook. And then any supporting ideas that go along with it. And then any key terms. So this is any terms or definitions that it gives you that you may need to know and tell me what they mean. So you're going to define them. So the next section really is talking about your conclusions. So what did you draw from reading? So what stuck out to you? What did you learn? What was the overall focus of the reading? And then the last section is, what are the 3 things I remember after reading? So those are 3 that stuck out to you. So you will complete this and turn it into Dropbox. The next one you're going to do is going to be the outline. So this is basically kind of what you're doing every week anyways as you're reading. The difference is this is more formal. So I'm going to go ahead and let you look here before we get back into the example. So after you read chapter 6 and you preview the chapter headings, you're really going to prepare this formal outline by looking at the headings, which are your main focus, your main topic, and then you're going to do the supporting details. Now, some people get confused by the numbers here. Okay, they know how to get the main heading, they may know what the supporting details are, or subheading, but then they don't know what the subtopics are. And not all of them will have subtopics, but some of them will. So you'll look, there's going to be more than one main heading. So this is just an example of how you can do it, right? So you'll put the title of chapter 6 here, and then you will type in here. The easiest thing for me to tell you to do would to be download this, and then I would start typing under the box. This here, you're not going to type in the box. This is just an example to show you how to get started. So I'm going to show you an example here. So if you're in your textbook and you have it open as you're watching this video, you will see, if you turn to 129, which is the start of our book chapter, you're going to see in bold face print, that's green at the top, it says a plan for active reading. That is a main heading. Okay, so that would be your Roman numeral. Any main headings are Roman numerals. Supporting details are capital letters. Any subtopics that go underneath that supporting detail are going to be numbers. So if you'll look here, the example shows you a plan for active reading. That is our main heading, our main topic. Well, under a plan for active reading, we said there are 4 strategies, right? So here are your 4. Previewing, marking what you read, staying focused, and reviewing. But remember, under each section, under step of previewing, there are some other sections, some subtopics that go with it. Well, how do you preview? Well, you get to know your textbook chapter. You get to take a chapter tour. You're planning time for reading, your mapping, your outline or listing. Okay? And the same goes for marking what you read. So marking what you read is the sub-detail, but you have to tell me, how do you mark what you read? Okay, so this is where your subtopics would come in. Okay, and it may take you a little bit of time to get adjusted. Like I said, a lot of students get confused by the numbers or the subtopics. Don't let that throw you off. That's why some people prefer the informal, which is a reading organizer, just because that they're not being as formal. But this is important if you have one that's got a lot of information on it. So that's what you will do for the first heading. The second heading is going to be here, strategies for reading different kinds of textbooks. That was the next bold face print green that was in our textbook, which started on page 138. And if you'll see here, you have to list any supporting details. It didn't have any subtopics, so you just list those. The third one of the main heading was improving your reading. Okay, again, on page 143, you'll see in bold face print green, it's improve your reading. Then you have your 2 supporting details, and then if you'll look, the second supporting details has some subtopics. It goes a little bit further into it. So that's why they listed those. So you can see this is just an example of how you will complete a formal outline. So I do want you to turn in both of them. So you will be turning in your reading organizer. And if you'll see here, if you complete the reading organizer first, I kind of already started you off, so you should be able to fill this in pretty easily. If you want, you can just start like she did, where she just did it all on her own, or if you want to download this, you can. If you have any trouble, you can reach out to me. I'm here to help you. But I do want you to understand the reason that we're doing this formal outline is because you really have to be able to pick out the most important parts of the reading. And this is going to help you not only as a study tool, but to gain a further understanding of the content, which is the purpose of reading with college textbooks. As always, when you get done, there is 2 ways to turn it in. I have a link where you can turn in your outline and reading organizer. I do want to point out here, you will see the word and, which means to, not or. I would like you to turn both of them in. If you do not turn both of them in, you will not receive full credit points. After that, you also will be completing your quiz. But if you don't want to click here to turn the Dropbox assignment in, you can just hit assessments and hit Dropbox. And you should be able to click on it and upload both. So I'm going to show you in student view so you can see what I'm talking about. So to get to it, hit assessment and hit Dropbox. And if you'll go down here, chapter 6, you click on it, you should be able to add your file. So you'll go into your computer, you will upload both your organizer, and then you can also upload your formal outline, and then you will hit add. And you do that for both of them before you hit submit. So you should be able to drop both files into Dropbox. And as I said, don't forget to do your quiz. And I did want to remind you, you do have multiple attempts to take the quiz until it closes. So it doesn't close until Thursday. So Thursday is when you're going to have your organizer and outline done, as well as the quiz will close. But until then, you have multiple attempts. Alright guys, as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you next time. Take care.